think I'm live. Oh, 3 people. Doop doop boop boop. We'll go ahead and I'm getting set up. Oh, keep the webcam fun. The number went down from 3 to 0. You can chat here, yeah. We'll see how it does. It seems like my webcam is like auto-focusing a lot, but I wonder if there's anything I can do about that. This is the troubleshooting point in the class. It might just be something with the kind of camera I have. We'll play with it. Why does that look? Oh, it might be. I'm not super high tech, so we might just play with it and see if it's manageable today. Well, it is about exactly 9 o'clock here. Probably some other time in other locales, but I think we'll go ahead and we'll get started. And I think this will be available after on the YouTube channel as well, which is another benefit of doing it here. So if you're here from the future, feel free to. Oh, good morning. We're just getting started. I have ADHD, so the chat function in this and Twitch may both be slightly challenging in the beginning of class because I'm going to want to respond to everything. But we'll go ahead and we'll get started with our practice this morning. Again, we're kind of moving with this theme of honoring Pride Month by bringing queerness into our practice. And just by virtue of coming here and supporting me as a yoga teacher, you are bringing queerness into your practice. That is part of one of my identities, or a piece of my identities that shines through in all of the different things that I do. In addition to that, I am also encouraging us to bring queerness into our practice by challenging the norms of yoga that maybe we have integrated or grasped onto, as like, oh, I need a yoga mat for yoga, or I need to be wearing leggings and yoga clothes for yoga. And really sitting with those norms, having a contemplative moment with them. So really thinking about them. Where does that value of needing a yoga mat to do yoga, or yoga clothes to do yoga, or flexibility to do yoga? Where are those norms rooted? Why do they exist? And then from that exploration, from that thought process, really deciding for ourselves as people who practice yoga, what we want to take forward out of those. And sometimes that might mean, no, I really value the norm of yoga clothes because it makes me feel, it feels like a ritual of putting on a uniform to do practice, or maybe it serves a purpose for you. And for those things, those norms that maybe don't fit, that act of thinking about them allows us to more mindfully move forward and choose different expressive ways. And part of the reason this is a queer concept or falls into the line of queering is that queering is a direct response to what is considered normal. And through that process, we get to really find who we are as individuals. So both in our yoga practice and in our own identity exploration and experience of self, there's this action of queering that is present, that moves through this action of maybe noticing yourself grasping onto something, asking, why am I grasping onto this thing, this norm, and then softly letting go to see if you would reach again for that same thing or maybe something different. So that being said, give yourself a moment to just let that settle in your nervous system. Notice any responses or feelings that might be coming up, and give yourself permission to feel those. Give yourself permission to have those. And from here, we'll move into our practice. We'll start by coming down all the way onto the mat this morning. So gently lowering yourself onto the back body, maybe wiggling and adjusting your mat, your whatever is underneath you. For me, it's a blanket. Adjusting those clothes. Maybe finding a couple wiggles in the body to really just settle. And allow yourself to come into this space of centering. Landing in our space, in our practice this morning. Maybe the eyes stay open and oriented to your space, or possibly it feels comfortable to soften them to facilitate this inner awareness. Just notice what comes up here for you. There may be thoughts or feelings or sensations that are vying for your attention. No need to push back on any of these things or grasp too tightly onto any of these things, but simply just awaken that noticing mind. Settle in with what is here. And once you start to feel this settling in, maybe you start to shift that attention to the breath. Noticing your inhales and your exhales. Where do you sense your breath this morning? As you start to notice that starting point of the breath, we'll start to encourage some more depth into the inhales and the exhales, breathing in through the nose, into the chest, the ribs, all the way down to the belly. A slight pause before releasing from the belly, the ribs, the chest. Breath in, ribs, or chest, ribs, belly. Breath out, belly, ribs, chest. Playing with this Dirga breath, our 3-part breath here. Exploring a few more rounds at your own pace, at your own cadence. And as you start to get comfortable with this breath pattern, inviting in an intention for your practice. So maybe your attention is in alignment with some of the things I brought in before we started, challenging that normal, bringing in contemplative thought into the practice. Or maybe it's something completely different, completely your own. As you start to land on that intention or that reason for coming to your mat this morning or today, I invite you to breathe in that intention, speaking it to yourself on the inhale. And then as you exhale, allowing that intention to transform, to settle, loosening that tight grip that maybe we're holding on to it. So that breath in is to speak that intention to yourself, to breathe it into your physical being. And that exhale is that loosening or releasing to allow it to transform in response to where you're at, where your environment is, what's going on in the world. Really touching into this ebb and flow of putting something out there and allowing it to transform. A few more rounds of breath with intention. And then when you're ready, allowing the eyes to reorient to the space around you if they were closed. And on a big breath in, we'll create a big X shape with our body, reaching to the corners of our space, allowing the spine to peel up off the mat. And with that exhale, the belly button drives in towards the mat, the limbs come together. Maybe the nose reaches towards the knees. That inhale allowing for expansion, this reaching out. And as we exhale, bringing the limbs in, almost grabbing for something, holding on to something. Again, this ebb and flow of releasing and expanding. Coming in and landing on something, grasping. Continue these two shapes with your own breath cadence, knowing that you might be moving slower or faster than me, and that's okay. One more big inhale. Big exhale to bring it all in, keeping the head and shoulders grounded here for a moment. Just notice what it's like to hold onto the knees, onto the legs, in towards that midline. Take a couple of breaths here in this held little ball shape. And then some practice with this gentle releasing. So letting the hands float off of the legs, the feet to come gently onto the mat. The feet can be parallel with the hips here, knees pointed high. Or if you're looking for a little bit more support in the low back, you can wiggle walk the legs a little bit wider and allow the knees to knock in. Just this neutral or resting posture for the legs. We'll start to reach the arms up towards the ceiling. And I want you to reach so much that the shoulders start to lift off of the mat. And then gently release the shoulders, soften them down into the mat so that there is both this grounding through the shoulders and this reach of the hands towards the ceiling. And then we're just going to play with grasping the hands, so bringing the hands towards fists and then rolling the fingers out. So grasping the hands and rolling them out. Option here, sometimes with these littler movements, I just like to allow my breath to still be present, but maybe not necessarily linked with movement. So maybe you're in that camp today of like, oh, I just want to focus on the movement and make sure that I'm still breathing. Or maybe you somehow link the movement to the breath. So that might be an inhale to reach the fingertips wide and an exhale to grip the fingers in. Notice if those shoulders are starting to creep up. See if you can still ground down as the arms reach above you. About 2 more rounds here, noticing if the forearms are getting fatigued, how the fingers are feeling, how the palms are feeling. And then we'll pause with the hands open, find a gentle bend in the elbows, and we're going to take the right hand here and place it on top of the left so that we're creating a little bit of, I'm going to call it a back bend for your hand. I guess that's sort of accurate. A little bit of pressure on the hand to stretch through the wrist, stretch through the fingers. You can kind of play with pressing through that left heel of the hand. That left hand heel. We'll take about 3 breaths here. Gently release the fingers, wiggle the hands out. Maybe you shake them for a moment. And then we'll take it to the other side. So palms up towards the ceiling. Generous bend in the elbows, and we'll take the left hand on top of the right. The fingers of the left hand are on the heel of the right. And just this gentle pull back on that right hand. The right heel can press slightly up towards the ceiling. Stretching through the hands here. One more big breath in. And a release out, gently taking the top hand off the bottom hand, shaking out the hands. And as you shake out the hands, we'll start to lower them back down towards the mat. They can come towards the sides until they land on the mat. And a big breath in. We're going to reach the arms all the way overhead so you're flat on the ground, arms reaching above your head. Extend the legs long here. Maybe there's this slight opening in the front of the body. The ribs and the hips splay apart slightly. And then as you exhale, keep the shape in your body. Allow the rib cage to close in towards the hips. The belly button comes a little bit closer towards the mat. So it's almost like there's this pushing down in the center. We're going to start to walk the hands and shoulders, or the head and shoulders, over towards the top right corner of the mat. Maybe it's just a little wiggle over towards the top right, or maybe there's a couple little steps that direction, finding a space that feels good in your body. You can keep the hands as they are. Maybe the right hand grabs for the left wrist. Or you can even bend through the elbows and grab opposite elbows overhead. You may choose to stay here, or you may add some more depth or sensation into the shape by beginning to walk the heels towards the bottom right corner of the mat. This might be a really small shift. Allowing yourself to breathe here in our little side bend. And take a couple of breaths on this side. When you're ready, we'll start to release the grasp of the hands or the elbows. Start to wiggle the feet back through center, the head and shoulders back through center. And take a big breath in, create that big X shape for a moment. And as you exhale, knees come in towards chest, the arms wrap around the legs, a little squeeze, the head and shoulders might even pop up towards the knees. We'll stay here for a breath cycle, big breath in, breathing into that back line of the body. And then as you exhale, soften the head down, soften the feet down. That next inhale will reach the arms overhead, the feet directly below us, almost like this little pencil dive shape here. And we'll take that to the other side, starting to walk the head and shoulders any amount over towards the top left corner of your mat. The left hand can grab for the right wrist here, or maybe you grab for opposite elbows. That additional depth might come in from walking the feet over towards the bottom left corner of the mat. Landing in your particular side bend. Knowing that that's going to be unique to this moment, to your body, to how you're feeling this morning. About 2 more breaths here. We'll start to release that interlace of the hands or the arms and start to shift the feet back through center, the head and shoulders back through center. A big breath in, spread the arms, spread the legs, create that big X shape. And then as you exhale, belly button drives down towards the mat, legs come in, arms come in, maybe that head reaches towards the knees. Just a moment in this small ball shape, big breath in. Breath out, release that all down. From here, we'll let the hands stay by the side, the feet rest on the mat, knees high. We'll start to reach that right foot up towards the ceiling, and we're just going to make some circles with the ankle here. Moving one direction, and then the other. I apparently can't keep my foot going one direction. It just keeps going back and forth. So notice what's coming up for you in the ankle. And then when you're ready, we're going to point through the toes and extend that leg long towards the bottom of the mat. The leg comes all the way down. We'll slide the other leg to meet it. We're going to bring the arms back overhead any amount here. And this is just to prevent us from rolling over on them in a second. We're going to lift that right leg and start to make this little arc at the bottom of our mat. So it's almost like you're drawing a little rainbow with your toes at the bottom of your mat. Allowing the foot to guide this movement, but you'll feel it throughout the leg, into the hip potentially. More than potentially, actually. You probably will feel it in the hip. And then when you're ready, we're going to bring that right toe all the way over to the left as far as it can go. And then allow that toe to move you onto the belly. So that reach with the toe allows you to flip over onto the belly. We'll slide the hands underneath our forehead here once we're on the belly and allow the head to rest on the palms. Bending through the knees, we'll bring both feet up and play around with some circles here. Maybe a little pedaling out or gripping through the feet. Can't quite make fists with the feet, but thinking about that similar movement that we did in the hands earlier, gripping and releasing. Once you feel good here, bringing that to stillness and lowering the feet back down. The tops of the feet make contact with the mat. We'll start to lift the head up off the hands, and we'll slide the arms out to a T, bringing the left ear towards the mat. We'll start to slide that right arm in towards the body and shift any amount onto the side. So we're finding that shoulder stretch here. Know that you can modulate how deep you go into this stretch with that right hand. You could be barely lifting the chest off the mat here. You might also want to add that top leg into the shape by either stepping it behind the bottom leg or in front of the bottom leg. So playing around with this shape, what is your body craving today? I find when I step my foot or my right foot behind my left leg, I get a little bit of opening stretch in the front of my right hip. This may be plenty for you in this shape, or you might want some more. So if you're wanting a little bit more something in the shape, you can reach the right arm up towards the ceiling, rotate so that the palm faces behind you, and then bend through the elbow, bring the back of the hand to the low back, getting that other shoulder into the shape. Whichever variation you're taking, know that it's what suits your body in this moment. And if for some reason you have gotten yourself into a shape that doesn't feel like it suits your body in this moment, know that you have those options to step it up, to step it down, to find that intensity level that suits you today. Spend about 2 more breaths here. Once you're ready to release, if you've got that bind, unravel the arm, reach it back up towards the ceiling, and then bring it down, palm face down next to the face. You've got a leg variation, lift that right leg, stack it back on top of the left. And then using the press of the right hand into the mat, we'll start to gently unroll from our shoulder stretch. Bending both hands or bringing both hands underneath the shoulders here. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, we'll start to press ourselves up into an all fours. Bringing the hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the wrists. An invitation just to move your spine how it wants to move. So this could be little barrel rolls. It could be cats and cows rounding through the spine, dropping through the belly. It might even be something that seems a little stiller or a less like movement. Noticing if you see yourself getting pulled towards what is normal to do in this all fours shape. Seeing if you can find the root of that. What is your intention in this moment? And making a choice that honors that intention. Rather than just falling into what's normal. About 2 more breath cycles here. And then we'll bring whatever movement came into stillness, thinking about the crown of the head reaching forward, the tailbone reaching back. We'll start to curl the toes under on the feet. That's where the toes live, in case you didn't know. And this might be enough of a foot stretch here. You could stay here in your all fours just with the toes tucked under. You might even start to shift the hips back slightly, bringing a little bit more weight onto the heels. The place that you pause could be here or between those two shapes. If you're craving more sensation or your feet are like, I need a deeper stretch, you can start to walk the hands towards the knees, working your way up to a seat on the heels. This is far too intense for me to hold. I'm going to come back down with just the hips here, but knowing we're all different, so you might have a different space to land in. We'll be here for about 3 to 5 breaths. Using that breath as an anchor for your awareness. If you're kneeling here, start to walk your hands back out. And then as your hands are out in front of you, we'll start to lift the hips off the heels if you were in that variation. Then unwind the feet, bringing the tops of the feet to the mat. Maybe taking a moment just to tap the tops of the heels on, or the tops of the feet on the mat. And then from here, we'll start to sit our hips back onto our heels, walking the hands towards the butt. Taking a moment to notice where the feet are making contact. Each butt cheek should kind of be on top of a heel here. The hips and the knees should be in parallel, or should be in line with each other, the legs making these parallel lines. And then from here, we'll start to walk the hands back. The fingers can point backwards or out towards the sides. This may feel like plenty on top of the shins, so we're focusing on stretching the tops of the feet now. If you want more sensation, maybe you play around with lifting one knee any amount off the ground. So you might not even be able to see that movement in me because I don't have a whole lot of mobility here. We're just lifting one of the knees off the mat. If you're wanting to add that little bit more intensity, we'll take 2 breaths on this side. Let that soften, and we'll switch it to the other side, lifting the other knee. 2 breaths here. Lowering the knee back down, we'll start to walk the hands back up, shoulders stack over hips. We'll lift the hips off the feet for a second, start to sweep the legs out from underneath us, and we'll be facing the other way on our mat, starting to work our way down onto our back bodies once more. Coming onto the mat for a moment here, we'll take a little integration shape, bringing the feet slightly wider than the hips, allowing the knees to knock in. Maybe a choice to bring the hands to rest somewhere on the body or out towards the side. As we breathe here, let all of that exploration settle. Maybe the eyes soften or close or stay looking up at the ceiling. Notice what those explorations have brought up on that side. About 3 more breaths here. Begin to gently reawaken from this moment of settling, allowing the eyes to open if they softened. Maybe there's some wiggles in the fingers and the toes. Bringing those hands out towards the side, we'll start to walk the feet back through to in line with the hips. And we'll start to take those explorations on the other side, reaching the left leg up towards the ceiling here. We'll start with just finding some circles with the toes. Bringing those circles one direction and then the other. Maybe noticing the calf getting fatigued. How this movement in the foot impacts that whole line of musculature down the leg, even into the core. And bringing those circles to a pause, point the toes as if you're reaching out through the toes. Allow that reach to guide the extension of the leg all the way down towards the bottom of your mat, lowering the leg onto your practice surface. And then we'll start to slide the right leg down to meet it. From here, keeping that point in the toes, we'll start to make those arcing shapes with the left foot here. So just drawing this upside down rainbow with the toes, lifting the leg up here so that it has some space to make that shape. And the next time that those toes go over towards the right, think about pulling the entire body with that shape, reaching the arms up and overhead so you don't roll over on top of them, coming on to the belly. From here, sliding the hands underneath the forehead for a moment, maybe even thinking about pulling the chin up towards the back of the head. So I like to think about my chin coming towards the bottom of my skull. This is, of course, not something that can happen, but more of like a sensational experience. We'll bend through the knees, find some organic movement in the feet. So this might be, again, exploring that little clenching through the feet, that gripping through the feet, almost like you're making little fists with the feet, and releasing. Or it could be something different and your own. Line that little exploration to come to a pause. We'll lower the legs back down, lifting the head up off of the hands. We'll start to reach the arms out towards the side. The right ear comes down towards the mat here. As you ground down here, start to bring that left hand towards your face, pressing into that left hand to start to rotate the entire body onto the side. This could be any amount here, so it might just be just this little press to open up through that shoulder. And then maybe you choose some variation here. It could mean stepping that top leg behind you or in front of you, noting that it can be different than what you did on the other side. If you want to get that left shoulder in on some action here, you can reach the left hand towards the ceiling, spiral the palm towards the back of your space, bend through the elbow so that the back of your hand can make contact with your low back. Knowing that any of these variations are good here, and that this side might need something different than the previous side. And take a couple moments to breathe into the shape, breathe into the stretch. And then we'll start to unwind. If you've got that arm variation, starting by reaching the arm back up towards the ceiling, bringing it back down so that the palm pushes into the mat right by your face. Stepping the leg, reaching it off the mat, and then stacking it on top of the other leg. From here, gently modulating with that left hand pressing into the mat, allowing yourself to roll back onto the belly. From here, we'll slide both hands underneath the shoulders and gently press up into our all fours. Bringing those hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Embrace the movement or stillness that wants to come in this moment. Maybe that's a shift from side to side, some cats, some cows. It could even be a child's pose. Allowing whatever movement that came in to come to stillness. From here, we'll start to curl the toes under, and we're doing something different here. Stepping the hands slightly forward in space. You can even stack them on top of blocks if that's suitable for your shoulders. We'll start to lift the hips up and back in space, our downward facing dog. Pedaling out through the feet here, so pushing the heels down on one side, bending through the knees. We'll just be here for a moment, walking out the feet. And then as you're ready, bringing that stillness, lowering the knees back down. We'll bring the toes together, walking the knees wide, and we'll start to melt the chest in between those legs, finding our child's pose. Forehead can make contact with the mat here, or maybe it's floating. The arms can stay reaching out, or if you want a slightly different variation, you can slide the arms in between the legs so that the hands come by the feet as you melt the chest and the head down. Sometimes I like to grab for the feet here and give them a little bit of a rub. But pick a shape that feels sustainable for you in this moment. Take about 3 more breaths here. Wherever those hands are at, we'll start to walk them underneath the shoulders. And that little press into the hands to lift the chest. We'll slightly shift the knees so that they come in line with the hips. And from here, we'll inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. Lift the hips off the heels. And then exhale, bring the hands behind you, interlace the fingertips. Feel the fingers pressing down. Shoulders squeeze together, a little back bend here. Taking a few breaths here. One more big inhale. Exhale, release the fingertips. Shake it out. We'll start to sink the hips over towards one side so that we can release the legs back around. And we'll come back down on to the back body. Lowering all the way onto the mat. The feet can be extended long, legs can be extended long, or maybe the feet rest on the mat, the knees pointed high. And take a couple moments to let all of that movement settle. in our little integration shape. Maybe the eyes soften or close. Maybe there's a pull to have the hands resting somewhere on the body. Giving ourselves that time and space for little snowflakes in our own personal snow globe to settle after that bit of shaking up and movement. About 2 more breaths here. Starting to let those eyes refocus on the space around you. Maybe there's some little wiggles or boggles that want to come in. And then on an inhale, we'll reach the arms and legs in that big X shape. This time as we exhale, we'll bring that all in towards the center. So arms come towards legs, and we'll rock over onto the right side here, coming into that little fetal position. Starting to slide the arms out towards the right side. So they're coming right out of that shoulder. The knees are kind of in this 90-90 orientation with the hips and the torso. So that hinge of the hips and the torso and the knees are approximately 90-degree angles. And on a big breath in, we're going to reach the left arm towards the ceiling. Allow the pull of the fingertips to unwind the upper half of the body as you bring the arms all the way open to a T. So the backs of the hands are both resting on the mat, the palms face up towards the ceiling. We land in our supine twist here. The knees may be sort of floating here. If you want some extra support, you can bring a prop like a bolster or a pillow or a block underneath them to support them. And we'll just take a couple moments to breathe into the twist on this side. Three more breaths here. Once you're ready, start to bring that gaze back through center so that the eyes are up towards the ceiling. Thinking about the belly button pulling in towards the spine, use that strength to bring the knees through center. Floating the feet back down towards the mat, taking a moment in this in-between shape. And when you're ready to switch to the other side, we'll take a big breath in, create that big X shape with the body. And this time as you exhale, bring the knees and the arms towards the center and start to rock over onto the left side of the body. We'll straighten the arms out towards the left side, the right hand stacked on top of the left. The knees in line with the hips, that 90-90 configuration of the legs. On a big breath in, start to reach that right arm towards the ceiling and then open up all the way both tops of the hands are making contact with the mat. The chest opens up towards the ceiling as the legs twist towards the left. Making any of those little adjustments here to make this your twist. That could be shifting the gaze over the right shoulder, choosing a different leg variation or a different arm variation. And we'll breathe into this shape. About 3 more breaths here. And then we'll start to unwind, bringing that gaze back through center, eyes towards the ceiling. That gentle engagement of the midsection so that you can easily reach the knees back through center, lowering the feet down. Taking a moment here to bring the hands towards the body. They could rest on the hips, or maybe one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. Letting our little twists settle. Letting the entirety of our back body start to make more connection with the mat, more intentional connection with your practice surface. And then maybe you choose to stay here for your Shavasana shape, for your final resting shape. Or you could potentially start to extend through the legs, creating this little V shape with the legs. The toes start to knock out. Those hands can continue to rest on the body if that feels right for you in this moment. Or maybe they release out towards the side. Palms can be face up or face down. Maybe you notice a little impulse to wiggle in order to settle. Once you find that shape that you wish to rest in for our practice today, start to invite in the sense of heaviness, the sense of settling. Maybe the eyes start to get heavy as the eyelids shut, or maybe the gaze just softens. A releasing of any tension that's built up between the eyebrows and the top of the head. Releasing the teeth from each other, allowing the jaw to soften and become heavy. The tongue releases from the roof of the mouth. That sense of heaviness continues to travel down the body into the shoulders. Maybe there's a little moment of tucking the shoulder blades underneath the rib cage. That heaviness into the rib cage. Down the arms all the way to those fingers. The hips rest into the mat. That sense of grounding continues down the legs, all the way to the toes. Give yourself permission to rest here, knowing that I will wake you when it's time. Allow the first movement that comes back into the body to be that intentional breath in and that intentional breath out. Allow the movement generated by that breath to start to travel into those furthest extremities, the fingers and the toes, allowing them to wiggle. Maybe they point and flex. Letting that movement travel into the wrists and the ankles, up into the knees and the elbows, into the hips and the shoulders. Eventually building enough momentum that you can gently rock over to one side. Coming into this first shape that we ever really make. This little fetal position. We'll take a moment here to thank ourselves for coming to our practice, for gratitude. And then as you're ready, start to gently press yourself up into that comfortable seat. The eyes can stay soft or closed. The hands can come to rest at the heart space. And we'll end today's practice with a communal breath, beginning by exhaling the stale air from our lungs. Breath in through the nose. And an audible sigh out together. The light and love in me sees the light and love in each and every one of you. And together we become stronger, we become brighter. Together we bow forward. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me this morning. This is quite an experience on this platform. I hope that you all, I hope it didn't do that the whole time. Maybe I need to shift so I'm facing the window that has the light in here. But yeah, thank you all for joining me. I'll see you next time. I will keep you both updated on the format and for future people. Hopefully there will be more YouTube. Who knows? We'll see if anybody watches this. Bye.